Joining us now on the 49ers podcast is Jennifer Lee Chan from NBC Sports Bay Area. Jennifer, tell me how the Combine Week has been for you so far.
You know, it's one of these events it's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. You've got to pace yourself throughout the week because you never know what's going to happen. And then it is just such a long week. You know, the drawn out process of different position groups coming through. You know, you talk to all the GMs and as many coaches as you can. But it's a fun event because it's really not technically the league beginning of the year, but it's so positive because it's players coming in and it's their NFL dreams coming true. So it's a fun, positive event.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a fresh start. We haven't hit that new league year yet. However, we're transitioning over, talking about the next draft cycle. So it's a lot of fun to get re-energized as we look ahead to 2026. Now, today is Wednesday, if I'm correct. All the days are starting to blend together. Yesterday on Tuesday is when John spoke to the media, President of Football Operations and General Manager John Lynch. And you also got to sit down and talk to him. But he shared a lot of information all the way from player updates, injury updates, coaching updates. What were some of your biggest takeaways from everything John had to say on Tuesday?
I think the good news is that there are so many players that were injured in 2025 that are set to be ready for training camp. You know, from Nick Bosa to Michael Williams to Keon White, who was just injured, in a shooting incident during the Super Bowl week. The fact that he'll be ready close to training camp, I think is really great news. Fred Warner obviously could have played in the NFC Championship game potentially. The only one that is going to miss that beginning of the season is George Kittle. So when you look at how many injuries they had, to have that many players back at the beginning of training camp, I think sets themselves up well for 2026.
Yeah, definitely very encouraging news on the injury front, especially for that D-line.
Yes.
There's quite a few guys he gave updates on, so it's exciting to hear on that front. Now, as far as coaching or just front office changes, we got a few new faces in the building with Raheem Morris and Kwesi. So can you tell me about what you know about them and some of the new guys that are going to be in the front office for the Niners?
Kwesi is such an interesting guy, and he had such a quick ascension, leaving the 49ers, going to the Cleveland Browns, and then general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. My first memory of Kwesi was when I first went to the Senior Bowl back in before Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took over. It was my first time at the Senior Bowl. I did not know what to expect and kind of looked up in the stands, and Keena Turner was sitting up there with a bunch of the scouts, and I just walked my way up there, and I'm like, can I join you? I didn't know anyone else in the whole stadium. So I did. I sat next to Kwesi, and he has such an interesting approach. You know, he comes from an R&D background, so it's different than the way the scouts have kind of made their way up. But just a different view on how to look at players, I think, brings another element of evaluation to players coming in, and he's done such a great job, and he's been part of a lot of the 49ers draft classes that have been successful.
Yeah, definitely. And did you make your way to the Senior Bowl this year also?
No, I did not this year, but I've been twice. I was there that year, and then the year when Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they coached, and they found Deebo Samuel.
I love that story.
I was there for that Senior Bowl.
That's awesome. So you have some experience covering that. What are the differences between those all-star games and something like the Combine, where top talent from across the nation are all going up, not against each other, but showing off their skills?
I think the nice thing about the Senior Bowl is that it's a little bit more laid back. You know, it's the beginning of that evaluation process. There's a little bit more ability to go onto the field and talk to the players and kind of get to know them a little bit more. And I think that's where scouts and personnel departments really kind of get to know players. So that's why sometimes you don't hear guys here at the Combine saying, oh, I haven't had a meeting with the 49ers, formal or informal, but they met them at the Senior Bowl. So, I mean, that's really a great place for guys to get to know the players and the prospects, because it's just a more looser environment. There's not these, okay, you're at a podium for 15 minutes. You know, it's kind of looser. They talk after practice. They get to see how they work being coached as well. Are they coachable? I think that's so important.
Yeah, definitely. And so while we were speaking with John Lynch, and as all the media go around Radio Row talking about some needs for the different teams during the offseason, John Lynch hit on a couple: wide receiver and the defensive front. So where do you see John Lynch picking in this year's Combine class? What sort of strengths does he like in receivers? What sort of strengths does he like in those defensive linemen? And where do you see those lining up with some prospects that are out there on the field?
I think the draft lines up perfectly for the 49ers needs this year because it's so deep in defensive linemen and in wide receivers. So no matter what type of player they're looking for, whether it's a nose tackle or an edge rusher, they're going to be able to find it in this draft. You've got wide receivers from big, strong wide receivers that kind of are similar to Juwan Jennings to more, maybe slight figured guys like Jacob Cowing, so you get all of those different elements and you're able to, they'll be able to pick and choose from who they've got. I spoke to Daniel Jeremiah kind of after he was at the podium, and he said there are guys because Kyle Shanahan likes guys who can block.
That's right.
So, not all wide receivers are able to do that, but
someone
said,
who can get physical.
Exactly. I don't know whether they're going to be able to keep Juwan Jennings or not, but they need that mentality, someone who's not going to back down, someone who's going to be physical and aggressive. And so they may be able to find it here. And Daniel Jeremiah said the two Indiana wide receivers are two guys that you could look for that type of physicality.
Okay, those are good pointers for us as we get closer to the draft and we start circling some names on the draft board as the 49ers name goes up in the stock. So basically what I wanted to also ask, because you mentioned Juwan Jennings, and so John Lynch also mentioned his name and also Trent Williams. When it comes to having good conversations about free agency possibly going around, we don't know exactly what's going to happen once those deals are announced. But one that is official is John Weeks. So he's also mentioned how he's loving Eddie Piñeiro's season this past season and Thomas Morrison and what they've been able to contribute. And he's hoping to get that trio back in the fold for 2026. So tell me about how important consistency is year over year for this special teams unit.
Oh, especially for special teams. When you look at, how they tried to do it for Jake Moody as well, keeping the guys that they had in Tabor Pepper and Mitch Wishnowsky, they wanted to keep it as consistent as possible. So I see them trying to do that again here, hopefully with Eddie Piñeiro, who they are in talks with. They've got a little bit of time before free agency hits. I wonder if John Weeks signing him was kind of a little incentive. If you come back, you're still going to have the same long snapper, which makes a big difference for a guy like Eddie.
Yeah.
Right? As far as Juwan Jennings, I think, they want to keep him around, but the wide receiver market is just so crazy. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. Franchise tag, he said they probably weren't going to use it, but the franchise tag for a wide receiver is around $28 million, which is just, I think, a little too rich for the 49ers blood at this point. And then when you look at, does signing Juwan Jennings take them out of the market of being able to keep Trent Williams? Which guy is more important for the offensive scheme? And I also think that maybe the announcement that came from Adam Schefter about Trent Williams needing to get more money is maybe just to kind of make everybody aware.
Yeah.
I can't see 38-year-old Trent Williams wanting to go to another team that is not coached by Kyle Shanahan because they take such good care of him. Every Wednesday he has that vet day. I don't know that he necessarily gets that when he's in a new offensive system.
Yeah, I could totally understand that. On the topic of special teams, we've seen that entire group rise during the 2026 season and how much that's been able to cause success for this 49ers team. So what have you liked from this either specialist duo or from the special teams unit overall from the 49ers? What were some of your biggest takeaways from this past season?
You look at George Kittle during the NFC champion or the divisional game, right? Wearing Eddie
His
Piñeiro's
jersey.
So, Eddie really sparked something in the team. I think everybody loves him in that locker room, and the uncertainty that, unfortunately happened with Jake Moody, that was kind of all erased when Eddie went out there. I think that was, something that really changed the momentum of the team, and John Lynch spoke about that as well. But a lot of the players they brought in, from Sky Moore, who had some great returns. He was just so close to breaking one, so close.
Yeah.
But I know that it's a focus for the 49ers, and they want to keep that going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we get another Sky Moore. Hopefully takes it to the house against the Cardinals to get that revenge because he was just so close. I remember that memory. Awesome. So what do you think would make this 2026 draft a success for the 49ers?
It's got to be similar to what they did last year. The fact that they have all 11 players still on the roster from last year says a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, Junior Bergen is on the practice squad, but the fact that they've got contributions from everybody across the board, maybe it's not as many snaps, but at least some. You look at Alfred Collins, Upton Stout, Michael Williams. Those three guys, of course, were the guys who dominated that rookie class. I honestly was really impressed with Alfred Collins, I think the most. I expected it from Upton Stout because he was just such a ball of energy.
Yeah.
But Alfred Collins was a guy who missed OTAs. He missed rookie minicamp. And I remember
Didn't know what
talking...
to expect.
Yeah, I remember talking to Matt Mayoko on the 49ers Talk podcast, and I was like, I don't know how this guy is going to pan out. And he absolutely exceeded all expectations. And to hear John Lynch say how awesome he was and how proud he was of, the work ethic and how much progress he made, I think is really cool to hear about from the general manager talking about a rookie.
Yeah, it's so funny because some people that are here at the Combine, when I'm talking about people, I'm talking about the prospects that are working out. But there was a player who was passing us in the hallway, and we had our Niners gear on. And as soon as he saw the logo, he goes, Alfred Collins, because he was also a Texas guy. So it's just so funny to see how, you see those logos and some of the new names are coming to mind for the younger generation rather than some of the legends. So it's funny to see how all things flow like that. But Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us on the 49ers podcast, and always a pleasure talking with you.
Glad to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.